Can't hear Dan.
Okay, we're live now.
Yep, we should be good to go.
Okay.
So I wanted to just call us together briefly, since we haven't really had a discussion in 2 or 3 months. And there was a very nice presentation made by Greg Dembowski to the Board of Selectmen 3 weeks ago that had some new information. A lot of the information you've already heard from me about. Then secondly, I wanted to talk about a strategy for contacting the property owners who we may need easements for north of Newberry Village. We sort of have a plan for Riverview and Newberry Village, which is that we're going to have to make a presentation to them. But we haven't done anything yet to contact the people above them, which will be our responsibility. And then lastly, discuss just some thoughts and some options about raising funds for rec now that we've been reinstated to help with initial costs of design, engineering, and marketing. So Dan, if you could bring up Greg's presentation. So I wanted to just give you, this was his agenda, and we're not going to go through all of it. I've edited the presentation down to the slides that I thought would be most appropriate for us to discuss. But if you wanted to look at more than what I'm showing you, this is what was presented, and I'm sure, Dan, this is probably somewhere on the town website. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So you've heard that the streetscape project has been broken down into phases, and we have discussed, well, phases 1 and 2 are complete. Phase 3 is sort of underway in terms of funding, design, etc. Phase 4 is also in the early stages of design, but pretty much it's been laid out as to where it's going to go. But there is now a phase 5, which has been added, and the possibility of even a phase 6. And the phase 6 could be, if you remember one of our prior meetings, I had discussed a developer buying 3 lots along Station Road and Laurel Hill Road and putting up a development there. I believe that that purchase has taken place, and so that could be a phase 6. So I'm going to take you through the various stages that are coming up, but I also left in the slides. So Dan, let's go to the next slide. This gives you an idea of what the timing is, as well as the costs, or sorry, yeah, I think the costs are in here down below a little bit. Yeah. It gives you all of the details of each phase, and you can see phase 4 and phase 5 would be new. Phase 3 is scheduled for construction next year, and then phase 4 and phase 5 are still to be determined. I will show you shortly what phase 3, 4, and 5 look like. But again, you can also see the funding sources. A lot of this was done with grants. The town has had to pay a low of 14% to a high of 45%. But I think, obviously, the more grants we get, and the fact that we have completed 2 phases already, it's making, I believe it's making getting the grants easier. So let's move on, Dan. So this is phase 4, which is one of the new ones. And if you look at this is where we had talked about the two developments that were going to go in across the street from one another with a crosswalk, and these are just below where Riverview is. And if you remember, we had talked about very possibly using that crosswalk as our means of getting from the west side of Federal Road to the east side, and possibly coming back around those proposed buildings back and behind Riverview to hopefully take our path north. Each of these lines, and I believe it's the orange lines, are what's included in the streetscape. The yellow lines, so that means that that's going to be built and paid for by the streetscape funding. The yellow lines are part of the streetscape, but they will all be built and paid for by the developers of those buildings. Now, so what, again, if we are going to continue north, we would be responsible for the costs, not of getting across the street, but building from wherever that ends up to behind the buildings and further north. That's funding that we would have to come up with. So there's also going to be, and this is certainly not our preferred option, but if you look at the second picture below, there is a plan for sidewalks for the streetscape to go up to Newberry Village. That's another option. And if we can't get some of the easements that we need to take our preferred route, this might be possible as well. And you can see on the right in the smaller picture where that crosswalk will be. There will be a flashing beacon saying that there's a pedestrian crosswalk there. Okay, Dan, let's go on. So this is, it's a little bit hard to see this, but this is going to be phase 5, and this is brand new. And so if you look at, this is where Federal Road meets Laurel Hill Road. And so you can see that once again, there's going to be another crosswalk added there. And so within a couple of 100 feet on the existing Greenway, there are going to be two crosswalks. The one that's already there up by Pancho and Gringo's, and this will be a second one further south. And it will, there will be a streetscape going up to the old Route 7, the old Federal Road, which is where Brookfield Cleaners is. What's hard to see here is across the street from the green dots is going to be another development, which I believe is a medical center. And so that is one of the reasons why there's going to be streetscape on that section of Laurel Hill. So that one is brand new. But with that crosswalk, and again, depending on how and where we end up heading north to cross up near the Four Corners, this may or may not come into play. Again, if we were to get involved with this phase 5, from where that yellow line or orange line ends on the left, wherever we get to from there north would again be we would have to fund. So there's still, quite a few challenges in front of us, but at the same time, you can tell that there's a lot of development going on up in the streetscape area, around the Four Corners, and even further north and south of there. So again, as these come up, Greg is talking to the developers about including some kind of easement or even construction of the Greenway to help us reduce the cost that we have to take in or acquire. So any questions on that? Okay, let's move on then. So that was the last slide, Dan, correct? Okay.
Yep, that looks like that was all of it.
Thank you. So we'll talk now about the property owners north of Newberry Village. Hi, Maureen.
Hey, sorry, I had a little trouble getting on.
I've hesitated because of the virus trying to get the information and contact these people, because my goal was to contact them in person. I think that is unrealistic at this point. And so probably what I'm going to do is get the names and addresses of those property owners and send them a letter. And the letter will state that, it's not going to state we definitely need an easement from you, but it's going to state that there's a possibility that we might need an easement. And when the virus quarantine ends, we'd like to get together with you and discuss our plans. So from what I remember, from what we had looked at when we first pulled the mapping, I think there are probably not many more than 5 to 10. I don't think there are 10 property owners that we have to deal with from Newberry Village up to the New Milford line. So I will be working on that over the next couple of weeks. Any thoughts on that from the group?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, good. Let's move on again to the last point on our agenda.
Jay, is that
Yes,
okay if I
Maureen.
ask a question? Which route do you think is going to be easiest for us to get through?
You're talking about from
Just your
Riverview,
personal opinion.
Riverview North?
Yeah. Because you propose two different things. We have to raise money one way or the other.
I'm still cautiously optimistic that we will get an easement from Riverview.
Uh-huh.
But if we don't, we at least have the alternative of going up Federal Road.
Okay.
But again, I'm hoping that we can get an easement from Riverview, and
Right.
it's obviously the most scenic
Right.
of all of the options.
Mhm.
So,
That's really what your first choice is.
yes,
And then the second choice being going up Federal Road. Third would be the going down by the cleaners that way.
well, we may have to do both of those.
Oh, okay.
So in other words, we may have to go down behind the cleaners and behind all of those businesses to get over Federal Road.
I see.
And then, up where this new development is going to be, where these 3 lots have been purchased on Station Road and Laurel Hill, if we can get that developer to bring us up to meet where the enclave is going to be, then we can at least cross the street there.
I see. Thank you.
So we
Hey,
need to
Jay.
do both sides, really. But because Greg is working with the developers on that southern portion, I'm not bothering with those property owners or those developers right now. I'm leaving that in Greg's hands.
Okay.
So I'm only working on the northern section.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey, Jay, you mentioned before that we have a path along Federal Road, but right now the designs all have just sidewalks going north from Four Corners up towards Newberry Village. So sidewalk doesn't really provide a viable bikeway or
It's-
walking path.
Well, it's really a combination because where you saw the yellow line where the enclave is going to be,
Yes,
they've already agreed to build both a sidewalk and a greenway
oh,
along
okay.
the side. And so we're assuming that the same will happen anywhere the streetscape is, that there'll be a greenway path there. But I don't know that Greg wants to put that in yet without knowing how we're going to actually get up to that point. So, but he's well aware of what we're trying to do. And so I think that, where you see sidewalk, I think similar to what they did south of the Four Corners, there is a sidewalk, but it's also being used as the greenway up to a certain point. We'll probably do the same thing north of there.
Yeah, I mean, just from a practical standpoint, if there's a lot of people, it's not going to be a viable bike riding path. I mean, it'd
No,
be fine for walking, but not for bicycling.
We've got to do 10 to 12 feet beyond the sidewalk. And that's
Right,
what
for it to be
he's
viable,
looking at
yeah.
doing.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to move on now to the discussion of funding and raising some funds. Jean, I know you had looked into that website that we had talked about a couple of months ago. Can you fill us in a little bit on what you found out?
Oh dear, I did not come prepared to do that.
That's okay.
Tonight. I'm sorry. Yeah, it looked like a very good thing. It did not look difficult, and but they kind of wanted us to, whoever is going to see it through, to start it. So
Right.
I had talked to you, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do, so I didn't really get too far with it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And just to remind everybody, this was this organization. One of the things that attracted us to it was they would do a GoFundMe page on our behalf. And so that might be our first entry into raising some funds. So Jean, if you could send me that, I forgot what that link was, but I'll take a look at it and we'll see what we need to do to get started.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll dig it up.
Obviously, one of our more successful PR campaigns last year was at the Brookfield Days, or whatever you call that, where the Four Corners Business Association had their 1 or 2 day fair. That's obviously been pushed off now till the fall. So I think this year we should plan on using that opportunity to try and raise money. Last year, we used it primarily for the survey. This year, I think we should try to, hopefully we'll have a little bit more concrete plan in place as to where the Greenway is going to go. And that might convince people to donate and help us to achieve that. So at this point, go ahead, Jean.
No, I'm not even sure we're going to have that in the fall.
I'm not sure either, but
That's, yeah, so I don't think we can.
they have set a date, I know, but whether that date holds or not, I'm not sure. So we'll have to play it by ear.
Yeah.
Those were the two main sources of funding that I saw us starting out with, because they're both shouldn't be very time consuming. Beyond that, we might want to think about, once we get some money in, possibly doing a town-wide mailing, because they always seem to work for various charitable groups in town, and it certainly worked for us when we were starting the Greenway in 2001. But I'm open to any other ideas that you guys have that we might be able to start now or sometime over the summer when things hopefully get a little bit better. Any other thoughts? Mary, any thoughts on what we should be doing?
I think Mary's on mute.
Okay, I think I'm off mute now.
Yes.
So sure, I mean, as long as we have the accounting behind us and we can go ahead and start raising some funds, we can get a little creative in the next Park and Rec mailer that we do. We can include it in terms of a couple of paragraphs in the fall brochure when that goes out. That might be some good timing to kind of announce the plans to the community too, and let them know what the group's been up to, and that we're currently accepting donations. We can hook it up to Facebook too when we're ready. We can put it on the Park and Rec Facebook. I'm sure we can get it onto the town's website. There's a different variety of ways that we can get it out to folks that that really didn't exist back in the day when we were first fundraising for the
Right,
Greenway, the first round, right? So
Okay,
those
good.
would be some of my initial ideas.
So you reminded me somewhat off agenda, but Mary and I have talked about doing an email to her entire email list. And it would be a two-part email. The first basically saying, we're sorry the Greenway is closed, but doing it for safety reasons, and we'll certainly let you know as soon as we have a date to reopen the Greenway. And the second part would be, and by the way, did you know that there's a committee that's been put together to extend the Greenway north, and give them a little bit of details sort of as a tease for, basically to tease them for when we do start fundraising, that people are already aware of it and we're not starting from scratch. So we'll probably get that out before the end of May. Is that good with you, Mary? Okay.
I just have one thing to add, Mary. I'll probably then update you with some more contacts, because I think the last time I gave you contacts was, I think, December. So I think there's a few more contacts on the survey list, which I'm actually going to end that survey now because it's been up for a year. But we have
Okay.
like 900 and something responses, but I'll end the email now. I have a question regarding the fundraising.
Yeah.
What would we tell people we're raising money for? We're not raising money for construction. We're raising money for.
Well, it's not quite construction, but we need money for design. We need money for, let's say, hiring, if we have to do this, hiring a grant writer.
Okay.
And also for, marketing the Greenway and marketing it, to try and raise more money.
Right.
So it's a marketing campaign, it's for design.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we used the funds for the last time.
Right. I just think we need to be clear about what we're raising money for. We don't want people to think we're raising money so we can go out and build it,
No, and we'll make that clear, that construction is going to be a few years away.
Right.
And this money is not being used for construction, but it is being used to help us get to construction.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Mary, I'll update you the contact list. All right.
Thank you, Maureen.
Okay, any other comments? Anything else you guys want to discuss?
Well, Jay, I had brought up, this was a long time ago, and we can't do it now because of this COVID-19, but I know one of the big fundraisers that does idea that raises a lot of money and is easy is the using the either the Brookfield Theater or Newtown. They do the comedy shows, and that Treehouse Comedy in Connecticut, they do all the marketing and everything for you. They arrange the whole thing, and it brings in a lot of money.
Okay.
So obviously we can't do it now, but
right. Do you know, or Mary, do you have any idea who runs the Brookfield Theater these days?
I think I have a contact, Lou O'Kell, I may not be saying the name right, but yes, I have a contact for the theater.
Okay, if you could send that to me, then if you have his information, I'll get in touch with him and say, this is who we are, and once the virus quarantine is over, we'd like to talk to you about a fundraiser.
If you,
Okay.
when I looked into this before, remember, and if you do it in Newtown, it's a much bigger facility, so you can make a lot more money. I mean,
Okay,
if you want to keep it in Brookfield because it's Brookfield, that's great, but. you
well, we
won't
could do
make much
both,
money.
right? We could do both.
Yeah, well,
They don't
Yeah.
run the same plays, right?
no, it's not a play, it'd be a comedy show.
Okay, so, but they used to do plays too as fundraising.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking,
Okay,
okay, I was,
No,
I'm
that's
not
all
saying
right,
you
that's
can't do a
okay.
play, but yeah, what I was talking about was the
I'd
comedy
rather go to
shows.
a comedy show anyway.
Yeah, me too. So I like them both, but whatever, you could do a play, you could do a comedy show. I know a lot of them, I've gone to a lot of them in Newtown and, they make tons of money.
Okay, good,
So,
all right. Any other thoughts? Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for joining, and I haven't even thought about a June meeting yet, so we're gonna play that by ear and see what Dan can do at Town Hall to get reopened, and whether it is disinfected and whether we can have a meeting there or not, or whether we're going to do this again, or whether we just skip till July. So just stay tuned for that. Okay? Dan, thank you so much for your help.
Not a problem.
yeah.
Jane,
All right,
thank
good night, everybody. Stay
Thanks,
safe.
everybody.
Thank you.
Jay, thank you for
Everybody.
putting that presentation together.
Sure.
Is there
sure.
anything else that you need any of us to do?
Not at this point. I wanted to ask you, though, off the record, how's the new facility?
Which one?
The Western,
Oh, the
Connecticut
medical
Medicine.
group? I haven't seen it, but I hear it's pretty big.
It looks big,
They're
yeah.
in.
Yeah, okay.
They moved during the quarantine, so nobody's been in there except for staff every once in a while, that they're alternating staff in there to do telehealth.
Okay.
So I haven't been in there yet. But I hear it's
Good
big.
luck.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
All
Thank you,
right.
Dan.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.